The auctioneer's gavel cracked like a gunshot, and Marianne Fletcher felt her knees give out. She stood on that platform in Salvation Creek, Wyoming, December 1882, wearing a dress so torn you could see her ribs through the holes, and every face in the crowd looked at her like she was livestock, like she was nothing. The bidding started at $5. No one moved. Then a voice from the back, rough as gravel. $100, cash. Before we go further, this story travels across the world, and I want to know where it reaches you. Hit subscribe, stay with me until the end, and comment what city you're watching from. Let's see how far hope can travel. Marianne's hands were shaking so badly she couldn't feel her fingers anymore. The cold had stopped being painful about an hour ago now. It was just numb, just absence, just the slow certainty that she was going to die today on this platform in front of these people who wouldn't even look at her. $5, the auctioneer repeated, his voice bored. $5 for a mail-order bride, gentlemen. Surely someone needs a woman. Woman, someone shouted from the crowd. That's a scarecrow in a dress. Laughter rippled through the men gathered in the town square. Marianne kept her eyes down, kept breathing, kept existing, because what else was there to do? She'd learned in the workhouse that you could survive anything if you just kept breathing. She got papers saying she's bought and paid for, the auctioneer continued. Ticket from Philadelphia to here. Contract says she's to marry Silas Morton, but Silas went and died before she arrived, so the debt passes to whoever takes her. $5 covers her train fare. After that, she's yours to do with as you see fit. Marianne's stomach turned. Yours to do with as you see fit. Like she was a horse. Like she was property that could be traded and used and discarded. $5 is too much for that, another voice called. Look at her. She's half dead already. $4 then, the auctioneer said, irritation creeping into his voice. Come on, gentlemen. Winter's here. She'll die if nobody takes her. Let her, someone muttered, but loud enough for Marianne to hear. One less mouth. That's when she looked up. That's when she made the mistake of meeting their eyes, these men in their warm coats and solid boots, these men who looked at her and saw nothing worth saving. And something inside her, something that had been bending and bending and bending under the weight of the past 2 years, finally snapped. I'm not livestock, she said, and her voice came out stronger than she expected. I'm a human being. The crowd went quiet. The auctioneer's face darkened. Excuse me. You heard me, Marianne said, and she was shaking now, but not from cold, from rage, from exhaustion, from 2 years of being told she was worthless. I'm a person. I have a name, Marianne Fletcher, and I won't be sold like cattle. You'll be whatever we say you are, the auctioneer snapped. You owe money. That makes you property until someone pays that debt. Then I'll pay it myself, Marianne shot back. I'll work doing what you can't even stand up straight. It was true. Her legs were shaking, her vision swimming. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. The train from Philadelphia had taken 5 days, and she'd spent her last coins on water. The dress she wore, the only dress she owned, had been stitched together from scraps she'd found in the workhouse, and it hung on her like a shroud. Nobody wants you, girl, the auctioneer said, and there was something almost kind in his voice now, almost pitying. Best accept that, and be grateful if anyone's willing to take you in. I won't, Marianne whispered. I won't be grateful for scraps. I won't. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the platform railing, but barely. The crowd murmured. Someone laughed. $3? The auctioneer called. Going once. Going $100. The voice came from the back of the crowd, deep and rough, and every head turned. Marianne squinted through the snow that had started falling, trying to see who'd spoken. A man pushed through the crowd. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a heavy coat and a hat pulled low. As he got closer, Marianne could see his face weathered, scarred, with a long mark running from his left eye down to his jaw. His eyes were blue cold as the Wyoming winter, and they locked onto hers with an intensity that made her want to look away. But she didn't. "You said 100?" the auctioneer asked, clearly surprised. "Cash," the man repeated. He climbed the steps to the platform, pulled a leather pouch from his coat, and counted out bills and coins. "That covers her debt and then some. She's free to go." "Free?" The auctioneer frowned. "You're not buying her." "Nobody buys people," the man said flatly. "I'm paying her debt. After that, she makes her own choices." He turned to Marianne, and up close, she could see the scar was old puckered, the kind you got from something that should have killed you. His voice softened slightly. "You got anywhere to go, miss?" Marianne stared at him. Her mind was spinning, trying to understand what was happening. No, I have nothing." "Then I'm offering you work," he said. "My name's Cole Garrison. I run a ranch about 15 miles north. I need help with my daughter, she's 10, and I can't care for her proper while managing the property. You'd have room board wages when I can spare them. It's honest work, nothing more." "Why?" Marianne whispered. "Why would you?" "Because everyone deserves a chance to stand on their own," Cole said simply. "Because I don't like seeing people treated like animals. And because my daughter needs a woman's hand. That's all. You want the work or not?" Behind them, someone muttered, "Cole's gone soft." "Cole's gone stupid," another voice added. "Wasting good money on trash." Cole's jaw tightened, but he didn't turn around. He kept his eyes on Marianne. "Well..." Marianne's throat was so tight she could barely speak. Yes, I'll take the work." "Then let's get out of here before you freeze to death." He shrugged off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. It was warm, heavy smelling of wood smoke and leather, and Marianne almost cried at the simple kindness of it. Cole turned to the auctioneer. "We done here." "You paid the debt," the man said, pocketing the money. "She's free to go." "She was always free," Cole said coldly. "You just didn't see it." He offered Marianne his arm. She took it, her hand trembling against the rough fabric of his shirt, and together they walked down the platform steps. The crowd parted for them, but Marianne could feel their eyes, could hear the whispers starting up. "She won't last a week. He'll regret this. Fool and his money." Cole didn't react to any of it. He just kept walking, his stride steady, and Marianne matched it as best she could, even though her legs felt like they might give out any second. They reached a wagon at the edge of the square. A girl sat in the back, small, thin, with dark hair in 2 braids, and eyes that watched everything with wary intelligence. "This is my daughter," Cole said. "Her name's Emma." "Hello, Emma," Marianne managed. The girl didn't respond. She just stared at Marianne with those watchful eyes, and Marianne saw something in them. She recognized the look of a child who'd learned not to trust too quickly. Cole helped Marianne up onto the wagon bench, then climbed up beside her. He clicked his tongue, and the horses started moving. They left Salvation Creek behind the town, disappearing into the snow and distance, and Marianne sat very still, wrapped in Cole's coat, trying to understand what had just happened. After several miles of silence, she finally spoke. "Why did you really do that?" Cole kept his eyes on the road. "Told you. Need help with Emma." "You paid $100. That's not just hiring help." "It's my money. I'll spend it how I like." "People don't do things like that," Marianne pressed. "Not without a reason." Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My wife died 3 years ago. Childbirth. The baby with her. Emma was 7 and she stopped talking for 6 months. Stopped trusting anyone. I've been trying to hold this ranch together and raise her right, and I'm failing at both. When I heard Silas Morton had sent for a bride and then died, I came to town thinking maybe I could offer help. Honest help. Then I saw you up there, saw how they were treating you, and I just..." He trailed off. His hands tightened on the reins. "I know what it's like to be looked at like you're broken," he finished quietly. "Like you're not worth fixing. I won't do that to another person." Marianne absorbed this. The scar. 3 years ago, Same time my wife died. There was a fire. I got Emma out, but I went back for my wife. Didn't make it in time. Beam fell, caught my face. The scar don't bother me. It's what I deserved for not being fast enough. That's not... Marianne started, but Cole cut her off. Don't tell me it wasn't my fault. I know what I failed to do. His voice was hard closed off, and Marianne understood she was hearing the truth of him, a man who'd lost everything, and blamed himself for it. I'm not here to fix you, she said carefully. And you're not here to fix me. We both need something. That's all this is. Cole glanced at her, and something in his expression shifted. That's all it is, he agreed. From the back of the wagon, Emma spoke for the first time, her voice small and clear. Are you going to leave? Marianne turned to look at the girl. What? Everyone leaves, Emma said, matter-of-factly. Mama left. The last woman Papa hired left after 2 weeks. You'll leave too. Emma, Cole said, warning in his voice. It's all right, Marianne said softly. She met the girl's eyes. I won't lie to you, Emma. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'll be good at this work, or if I'll last, or if any of this will work out. But I promise you this, I won't leave without saying goodbye. If I go, you'll know why, and you'll know I didn't abandon you. That's a promise. Emma studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, she nodded. They rode in silence after that, the only sounds the creak of the wagon, the horses' hooves in the snow, and the wind cutting across the plains. The ranch appeared just as dusk was settling in a cluster of buildings against the white landscape, small and isolated, and somehow defiant against the vastness of the Wyoming territory. It's not much, Cole said as they approached. House needs work, barn's solid, land's good when it's not buried in snow. I run cattle about 50 head. Had more, but the past few years have been hard. It's beautiful, Marianne said, and meant it. Cole looked at her like she was crazy. It's falling apart. It's standing, Marianne corrected. That's more than a lot of things can say. He didn't respond to that, just drove the wagon up to the house and helped her down. Her legs nearly gave out when her feet hit the ground and Cole caught her elbow. When's the last time you ate? 3 days ago, maybe 4. I lost track. Cole's jaw tightened. Emma, get inside and warm up. I'll get Miss Fletcher settled, then I'll make supper. I can make supper, Marianne said quickly. That's part of the work, isn't it? You can barely stand. I can cook sitting down if I have to. Please. Let me be useful. Cole looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, but you eat first. Can't have you collapsing in my kitchen. He led her inside, Emma trailing behind, and Marianne stepped into the warmth of the house and almost wept from the relief of it. The interior was sparse main room with a fireplace, a table, a few chairs. Clean but clearly lacking a woman's touch. Stairs led up to what she assumed were bedrooms. Your room's upstairs, Cole said. First door on the right. Emma's is across the hall, mine's at the end. There's a washroom out back, pump in the kitchen for water. I'll get the fire going in your room while you warm up here. He disappeared upstairs, and Marianne sank into a chair at the table, her whole body shaking now that she'd stopped moving. Emma stood by the fireplace watching her with those careful eyes. You're very thin, the girl observed. I haven't had much to eat lately, Marianne admitted. Why not? Because I didn't have money to buy food. Why didn't you have money? Emma. Cole's voice came from upstairs. Stop interrogating her. I'm not interrogating. I'm asking questions. It's all right, Marianne called up. She looked at Emma. I didn't have money because my husband died and left me with debts. The people he owed took everything we had. Our house, our furniture, everything. I ended up in a workhouse, and then I saw an advertisement for mail-order brides. I thought maybe I could start over. But the man who sent for me died before I arrived, and his debts became mine. Does that answer your questions? Emma considered this. That's not fair. No. Marianne agreed. It's not. Papa says life isn't fair. Your papa's right. But he also says we make it fair when we can. That's why he paid for you. Marianne felt her throat tighten. Your papa's a good man. He's sad a lot, Emma said quietly. He thinks I don't notice, but I do. He blames himself for Mama dying. But it wasn't his fault. The midwife said sometimes babies just don't come right. And the fire was an accident. He couldn't have saved her. Have you told him that? He won't listen. He just gets quiet and goes to work. Cole's footsteps sounded on the stairs, and Emma immediately went silent. He came back into the room, brushing dust off his hands. Fire's lit. Room should be warm soon. Now let's get some food in you before you pass out. He moved to the kitchen area and started pulling out supplies: bread, dried meat, cheese, a jar of preserves. His movements were efficient, practiced, but there was a stiffness to them, like a man who'd learned to do something out of necessity rather than pleasure. Marianne started to stand. Sit, Cole ordered. You're shaking so hard you'll drop everything. Just sit and rest. So she sat, and she watched him work, and she tried not to cry from the simple kindness of being cared for. He put a plate in front of her, bread with butter and preserves, sliced meat, cheese. It wasn't fancy, but it looked like a feast. Eat slowly, he warned. Your stomach's not used to food. You'll make yourself sick if you rush. Marianne nodded and picked up the bread with trembling hands. The first bite tasted like heaven. The second made her eyes water. By the third, she was crying openly, unable to stop herself. Cole looked away, giving her privacy in her breakdown. Emma watched with solemn eyes. It's good bread. Marianne finally managed, wiping her face with the back of her hand. It's just bread, Cole said gruffly. It's the best bread I've ever tasted. He didn't respond to that, just made plates for himself and Emma, and they ate together in silence. This strange temporary family, bound together by need and circumstance, and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, they could help each other survive. After supper, Cole showed Marianne to her room. It was small, simple, a bed, with a quilt, a dresser, a chair by the window. Clean and spare, and hers. There's extra blankets in the dresser if you get cold, Cole said from the doorway. Emma and I are up at dawn to tend the animals. You can sleep as long as you need tomorrow. Get your strength back. I'll be up with you, Marianne said. I'm here to work. You're here to not die, Cole corrected. Work comes after that. Understood. Understood. He nodded, started to leave, then paused. Miss Fletcher? Yes. Thank you for what you said to Emma about not leaving without saying goodbye. She needed to hear that. I meant it. I know. That's why it mattered. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Marianne sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the room, this space that was hers, this place she'd landed in after falling so far. She thought about the auction platform, about the faces of those men, about Cole Garrison stepping forward with money he probably couldn't afford to spend and buying her freedom. She thought about Emma's watchful eyes and Cole's scarred face and the weight of grief this family carried. She thought about the promise she'd made to stay, to try to be useful. And for the first time in 2 years, Marianne Fletcher let herself believe that maybe she deserved to be here. Maybe she was worth saving after all. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the Wyoming territory in silence and cold. But inside the Garrison Ranch, 3 people slept, 3 broken pieces that might somehow fit together into something whole. The story was just beginning. Marianne woke to voices arguing downstairs. She's not staying, Emma. People like her don't last. You don't know that, Papa. I know enough. She'll take what she can and leave soon as the snow clears. Marianne lay very still in the pre-dawn darkness, Cole's words hitting her like fists. After everything yesterday, the money he'd spent, the kindness he'd shown, he still thought she'd run. Still saw her as someone who'd take and leave. You're wrong. Emma said, her voice firm in a way that surprised Marianne. She promised me. Promises don't mean much when things get hard. Yours do. Why can't hers? Silence. Then Cole's footsteps heavy on the wooden floor. Get dressed. Animals need feeding. Marianne waited until she heard the door close, then got up and dressed quickly. Her dress from yesterday, still damp from snow, still torn in places, was all she had. She pulled it on, wincing at the cold fabric against her skin, and went downstairs. Emma was at the table lacing her boots. She looked up when Marianne entered. You heard? I heard. He doesn't mean it mean, he's just scared. Scared of what? Of hoping. Emma finished with her boots and stood. People who hope get hurt. That's what he thinks. What do you think? Emma studied her with those old eyes and that young face. I think you'll either prove him wrong or prove him right. Either way, I'll know who you really are. She walked past Marianne and out the door, leaving Marianne standing alone in the kitchen, with the truth of a 10-year-old's wisdom ringing in her ears. Marianne found them in the barn 20 minutes later. Cole was forking hay into the stalls, Emma scattering grain for the chickens that huddled in the corner for warmth. Neither acknowledged her arrival. What can I do? Marianne asked. Nothing, Cole said without looking up. Go back inside where it's warm. I'm here to work. You're here to rest. Doctor's orders. You're not a doctor. Don't need to be to see you're half dead from exhaustion. Marianne felt her temper flare, that same anger that had surfaced on the auction platform. So I should just sit inside doing nothing while you and Emma do all the work. That's not why you brought me here. I brought you here so you wouldn't freeze to death in that godforsaken town. Cole shot back, finally looking at her. Everything else comes after that. No. You brought me here to help with Emma, to earn my keep. Well, I can't do that sitting by a fire wrapped in blankets. So tell me what needs doing, or I'll figure it out myself. They stared at each other across the barn, breath misting in the cold air, neither willing to back down. Emma's voice broke the standoff. She could collect eggs. I always miss the ones under the roost. Cole's jaw worked. Then, fine. Collect eggs. But you feel faint, you sit down. Understood. Understood. He handed her a basket and went back to work. Marianne moved to the chicken area, and Emma showed her where the hens liked to hide their eggs, tucked in corners, buried in straw, placed in spots that required crawling to reach. Why do they hide them? Marianne asked, on her hands and knees reaching for an egg. Because they don't want anyone taking their babies, Emma said simply. Even though they're not babies anymore, just food. But the hens don't know that. Marianne sat back on her heels, egg in hand, and looked at this strange child who spoke in metaphors. You're very wise for 10. I read a lot. Papa taught me. Said Mama wanted me educated proper, not like frontier girls who can barely write their names. Your mama sounds like she was special. Emma's face went carefully blank. I don't remember her much anymore. Just pieces. Her singing. Her hands braiding my hair. The way she smelled like bread and lavender. Papa says I look like her, but I don't see it. What do you see? Someone who's never enough. Papa tries so hard, but I know he wanted a son. Someone who could help with the ranch proper, not just a girl who's afraid of cows. You're afraid of cows? They're very large and they stare. Despite everything, Marianne laughed. It came out rusty, like she'd forgotten how, but it was real. Emma smiled, too tentative but genuine. Your papa doesn't want a son, Marianne said firmly. He wants you healthy and happy. That's all any parent wants. Is that what your parents wanted? The question caught Marianne off guard. Yes. They wanted me happy. They died when I was 16. Typhoid. Both of them within a week. So you were alone? Yes. Then you understand. Emma picked up her grain bucket. Being alone is the worst kind of scared there is. She walked away before Marianne could respond, leaving her kneeling in the straw with a basket of eggs and a heart that hurt from the truth of it. They worked in silence for another hour, Cole repairing a broken stall door, Emma organizing tack, Marianne sweeping out the feeding area. The physical labor felt good, despite her weakness, felt like purpose, like earning her place in this strange new world. When they finally returned to the house, the sun was up, and Marianne's legs were shaking from exhaustion. She made it to a chair at the table before they gave out completely. Cole noticed. "You overdid it." "I did what needed doing." "Stubborn." "Practical." He almost smiled. Almost. Then he moved to the kitchen. "I'll make breakfast." "I'll make breakfast," Marianne countered, forcing herself to stand. "That's my job. You paid for me to help, so let me help." "You can barely walk." "I can cook sitting down. You said that yourself yesterday." Cole opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. "Fine. Flour's in the tin bacons and the cold box eggs you just collected. Make whatever you want." He retreated to the chair Marianne had vacated, and she saw the lines of exhaustion around his eyes, the weight he carried in his shoulders. This man who'd spent $100 he couldn't afford on a stranger's freedom. "How long have you been running this ranch alone?" she asked, pulling out supplies. 3 years, since the fire." "That's a long time to carry everything by yourself." "Didn't have a choice. Everyone has choices. You chose to keep going instead of giving up. That takes strength." Cole didn't respond, but Marianne saw his hands tighten on the armrests. She cooked bacon and scrambled eggs, fried bread in the bacon grease, made coffee strong enough to stand on its own. The movements came back to her easily muscle memory from years of being a wife of caring for a household. She'd been good at this once before everything fell apart. They ate together, the three of them, and Marianne watched Cole and Emma interact with the careful politeness of two people afraid to push too hard. He asked about her lessons she'd been teaching herself from books. She asked about the cattle he said they were holding on barely. Neither mentioned the mother and wife who should have been sitting at this table. After breakfast, Emma cleared the dishes without being asked. "Can I show Miss Fletcher my books?" Cole looked at Marianne. "You're exhausted." "I'm fine." "You're lying." "Then I'm lying. But I'd like to see Emma's books." He studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. 1 hour. Then you rest whether you want to or not." Emma led Marianne upstairs to her room, small like Marianne's but filled with personality. Drawings pinned to the walls, rocks and feathers arranged on the dresser, and an entire shelf of books. "Papa orders them from Denver," Emma explained, running her fingers along the spines. "History, poetry, mathematics, natural science. He says education is the only thing no one can take from you." Marianne pulled out a volume of poetry Whitman. "You read this. Some of it. The parts about grass and death and becoming. I don't understand all of it yet, but Papa says that's all right. He says understanding comes with living." "Your Papa's right about a lot of things." Emma sat on her bed, pulling her knees to her chest. "Do you really promise not to leave without saying goodbye?" "I really promise." "Even if Papa's mean to you, he gets mean sometimes when he's scared. Says things he doesn't mean." "I know about being scared," Marianne said, sitting beside her. "I know about saying things you don't mean because you're trying to protect yourself. Your Papa and I aren't so different that way." "Were you married before?" "You said your husband died?" "I was. For 3 years. His name was Thomas. He was a clerk, very kind, very gentle. Nothing like—" She trailed off. "Nothing like Papa," Emma finished. "Papa's not gentle, but he's good. There's a difference." "Yes," Marianne agreed. "There is." They spent the hour talking about books and poems and the things Emma wanted to learn. Then Cole appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, expression stern. "Time's up. You need to rest." "I'm fine." "You're swaying where you sit. Bed. Now." Marianne wanted to argue but didn't have the strength. She let Emma guide her to her room, let herself fall into the bed fully clothed, and was asleep before she heard the door close. She woke to darkness and voices again, but different this time. Urgent. Frightened. "Papa, she's burning up." "I know, Emma. I know. Get cold water and cloths. Quick." Marianne tried to open her eyes but couldn't. Her body felt like it was on fire, every muscle screaming, every breath painful. She'd pushed too hard too fast, and now her body was demanding payment. Cold cloth on her forehead, hands rough calloused, checking her pulse. "Fever's high," Cole muttered. "Damn it, I knew she was too weak, knew she'd—" "It's not your fault, Papa. Everything's my fault." Marianne wanted to tell him he was wrong, wanted to say something, but the darkness pulled her back under. Time became strange. She surfaced occasionally to sips of water forced between her lips to cool cloths, being changed to voices murmuring in the darkness. Sometimes it was Cole, sometimes Emma, sometimes both. "She has to wake up Papa." "She will. You don't know that." "I know she's a fighter. Anyone who stands up on an auction platform and calls herself human when everyone's treating her like livestock, that's a fighter. She'll pull through." "You like her?" A long pause. "I respect her. That's different." "You like her," Emma insisted. "I can tell." No response. Just the sound of cloth wringing out water, dripping footsteps moving away. Later hours or days, Marianne couldn't tell she surfaced to find Cole alone in her room. He sat in the chair by her bed, head in his hands, and she heard him talking to himself. "Can't lose another one. Can't watch another person die because I wasn't good enough, wasn't fast enough, wasn't—" He broke off. "She has to wake up. She has to." Marianne tried to speak, managed only a whisper. "Still here." Cole's head snapped up. "Marianne." "Still here," she repeated, forcing her eyes open. "Still fighting." His face did something complicated, relief and fear, and something else she couldn't name. "The fever's been 3 days. You scared us." "Scared myself. You pushed too hard. Your body couldn't handle it. Had to prove I could work. Had to show you I wouldn't run. By nearly dying. Whatever it takes." Cole made a sound between a laugh and a sob. "You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met." "Good. Because I'm not leaving. Not until you ask me to. Not until I've earned what you paid for me." "I didn't buy you. I freed you." "Same thing." "It's not." They stared at each other in the dim lamplight, and Marianne saw something shift in his expression. A wall coming down, a door opening just slightly. "Emma's been beside herself," he said finally. "Worried you'd break your promise." "I don't break promises." "I'm starting to believe that." Over the next week, Marianne recovered slowly. Cole insisted she stay in bed, and for once, she didn't argue. Emma brought her books and sat reading aloud adventure stories, history, poetry. Cole brought meals on trays and checked her fever with those rough, gentle hands. They took turns sitting with her, and Marianne learned things about them in those quiet hours. Emma loved horses, but was terrified of riding. Cole had wanted to be a teacher before his father died and left him the ranch. They both missed Catherine, Cole's wife, Emma's mother, in ways that had nothing to do with time and everything to do with the holes left in their lives. "What was she like?" Marianne asked Emma one afternoon. Emma thought about it. "Like sunshine, like everything good. Papa says I shouldn't build her up too much in my head that she was human and had faults, but I only remember the good parts." "That's all right. We're allowed to remember people the way we need to." "Do you remember your husband that way?" "Sometimes. Other times I remember he kept secrets. That he borrowed money without telling me. That his kindness came with a cost I didn't know about until he was gone. People are complicated." "Was Papa complicated?" "Is Papa complicated?" Marianne thought about Cole, his roughness, hiding tenderness, his guilt, masking grief, his fear of hoping again. Yes, very. By the end of the week, Marianne was strong enough to walk downstairs to sit at the table for meals, to insist on helping with small tasks, despite Cole's protests. "You're still recovering." "I'm recovered enough. Let me help." "You'll relapse." Then you'll nurse me back again. Either way, I'm doing something." He gave her small jobs mending clothes, preparing vegetables, organizing supplies. Tasks she could do sitting down. Tasks that didn't require strength she didn't have yet. And slowly, steadily, she felt herself becoming part of the household. Emma started seeking her out for help with arithmetic problems, for opinions on drawings, for someone to talk to who wasn't carrying the weight of grief. Marianne taught her things her own mother had taught her: how to braid hair properly, how to make bread from scratch, how to find shapes in clouds. Cole remained distant, but not unkind. He spoke to her about ranch business, asked her opinions on household matters, thanked her quietly for helping with Emma. But he kept space between them, kept walls up, and Marianne understood why. He'd lost too much to risk caring again. One evening 2 weeks after the fever broke, they sat together after Emma had gone to bed. Cole was mending a bridle. Marianne darning socks, the silence comfortable, but waited. "Can I ask you something?" Marianne said. "If you must." "Why did you really pay for me?" The truth, not the excuse about needing help. Cole's hand stilled on the leather. He didn't look at her. "You want the truth?" "I want the truth." He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because 3 years ago I stood in a burning house and had to choose, save my wife or save my daughter. I chose Emma, and Catherine burned to death knowing I'd picked our daughter over her." Marianne's breath caught. "Cole." "I heard her screaming my name while I ran outside with Emma. Heard her begging me to come back. I tried. God knows I tried. But the roof collapsed, and I couldn't reach her, and that scar on my face is from the last time I tried to go back in. Someone pulled me out before I could die too." He finally looked at her, and his eyes were full of a pain so deep it had no bottom. "So when I saw you on that platform, saw them treating you like you weren't worth saving, I remembered what it felt like to choose. And I chose you, because no one should be left to burn when someone could have helped. That's the truth." Marianne set down her mending with shaking hands. "You didn't choose Emma over your wife. You saved your daughter's life. That's not the same thing." "Felt the same." "But it's not. Cole, you did what any parent would do. You saved your child. Catherine would have wanted that, would have demanded it. You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because if I had a child and a husband and the house was burning, I'd beg him to save our child too. That's what parents do. We sacrifice everything for them." Cole's jaw worked, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I hear her screaming in my dreams. Every night. For 3 years. Emma doesn't know I don't let her see. But every night I hear Catherine calling my name, and every night I can't save her." "Then stop trying to save her in your dreams," Marianne said gently. "Start forgiving yourself in your waking hours. Because this guilt you're carrying, it's killing you just as surely as that fire would have." "I don't deserve forgiveness." "No one deserves it. That's why it's called grace." They sat in silence, the weight of confession between them, and Marianne understood that she'd just been given something precious, the truth of Cole Garrison's breaking. And in return, she owed him her own. "My husband didn't just borrow money," she said quietly. "He gambled it, every cent he could get his hands on. Told me he was paying for his mother's care, for his father's debts. But really he was feeding horses at the track, playing cards in back rooms, chasing the wind that would fix everything. When he died pneumonia, nothing dramatic. I found out we owed money to men who don't forgive debts. They took everything. And when everything wasn't enough, they sold me to the workhouse to settle what was left." Cole looked at her with new understanding. "That's how you ended up on that train." "That's how I ended up on that train. And for a year I hated Thomas for lying to me. Hated him for leaving me with nothing. But hate takes energy I didn't have. So eventually I just let it go. Not forgiveness exactly. Just acceptance that he was broken in ways I couldn't fix, and his breaking broke me too. And now I'm here trying to put pieces back together, same as you." "We're both pretty broken," Cole said. Yes. But broken things can still be useful, can still have purpose. Is that what you want to be useful? Marianne met his eyes. I want to matter. To someone. To something. I want to look in a mirror and see a person worth saving. Your $100 said I was worth that much. Now I need to prove you right. You don't need to prove anything. Yes, I do. To you, to Emma, to myself. So let me. Cole studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right. But you do it by healing, not by working yourself to death. Agreed. Agreed. They went back to their mending, but something had changed between them. A wall had come down. A truth had been spoken. And in the quiet house on the Wyoming plains, two broken people sat together and learned what it felt like to not be alone in their breaking. Upstairs, Emma lay awake in her bed, listening to the voices drift up through the floorboards, and smiled into the darkness. Her father was talking again. Really talking, not just surface words. And Miss Fletcher was staying. Really staying. Maybe Emma thought they were all going to be all right after all. The blizzard hit on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after that conversation by the fire. Marianne woke to Emma shaking her shoulder. The girl's face pale in the gray dawn light filtering through the window. Miss Fletcher, Papa's not back. He went to check the cattle before sunrise and he's not back. Marianne sat up instantly alert despite the cold biting through her nightgown. How long ago? 2 hours, maybe more. The snow started right after he left and now I can't see the barn from the house. Marianne moved to the window and her stomach dropped. The world had disappeared into white, thick, driving snow that erased everything beyond 10 feet. This wasn't just a storm. This was the kind of Wyoming blizzard that killed people. Get dressed, Marianne said, forcing her voice to stay calm. Warm clothes layers. We're going to find him. But Papa said never to go out in a whiteout. He said, I know what he said, but he's been out there too long and that means something's wrong. We're going to find him and bring him home. Trust me. Emma nodded and ran to her room. Marianne dressed quickly, pulling on every piece of warm clothing she could find, Cole's extra shirt over her dress, 2 pairs of socks, her boots tied tight. Her hands shook as she dressed, but not from cold. From fear that they'd be too late, that Cole would be another person she couldn't save. She found rope in the mudroom, thick-coiled, meant for leading cattle. She tied one end around her waist, the other around Emma. We stay connected no matter what, Marianne said firmly. If I can't see you, I can still feel you. Understand? I understand. And if I tell you to go back to the house, you go. No arguments. But, no arguments, Emma. I need to know you're safe or I can't think straight. Promise me. Emma's jaw set in a way that reminded Marianne painfully of Cole. I promise, but you have to promise to find him. I promise to try. They stepped outside, and the wind hit like a fist. Marianne grabbed Emma's hand, and they pushed forward the rope between them, their only connection to each other in the white chaos. The barn was maybe 50 yards from the house, but in the storm, it felt like miles. Marianne counted steps, tried to keep her bearings, fought the panic that wanted to rise up and swallow her whole. She'd survived poverty and loss and degradation, but she'd never fought nature before, never felt so small against something so vast and merciless. They reached the barn by feel more than sight. Marianne's hand hitting wood, finding the door, pulling it open against the wind. Inside was darker but blessedly still, the animals shuffling nervously in their stalls. Papa, Emma called. Papa, are you here? No answer. Marianne moved through the barn, checking each stall, each corner. The cattle were there, huddled together for warmth. The horses were restless but unharmed. But no Cole. He must have gone to the far pasture, Marianne said, her heart sinking. Where the pregnant cows are. That's 1/2 mile in good weather. In this, I know. Marianne knelt in front of Emma, gripping her shoulders. Listen to me. I'm going to find him. But you need to stay here where it's safe. Keep the animals calm. If I'm not back in 2 hours, you go to the house and you stay there. Don't come looking for us. Understand? I won't leave you both out there. You will if I tell you to. Emma, your papa needs to know you're safe. If he knows you're in danger, he'll do something stupid trying to save you. The best way to help him is to stay alive and stay here. Can you do that?" Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. 2 hours. 2 hours. Marianne hugged her quickly, fiercely, then grabbed a second rope and headed back into the storm alone. The walk to the far pasture should have taken 15 minutes. In the blizzard, disoriented and half-blind, it took 40. Marianne followed the fence line, one hand always touching wood, the other holding rope. She called Cole's name until her voice went hoarse, until the wind tore the words away before they could carry. She found him by pure luck, stumbling over something in the snow that turned out to be his leg. He was lying against the fence, covered in white, and for one terrible moment, Marianne thought he was dead. Then he moved, trying to sit up, and Marianne fell to her knees beside him. "Cole! Cole! Can you hear me?" His eyes opened unfocused and pain-glazed. "Marianne, what do you get back to the house? Storm's too dangerous." "Not without you. Can you stand?" Legs broken. Fell in a drift, went through into a hole. Heard it snap. He tried to move and went white with pain. "Damn it, you need to leave me. Get back to Emma." "I'm not leaving you to freeze to death. I'm not worth dying for. That's not your choice to make." Marianne looked around, desperately trying to think. She couldn't carry him. He was too heavy, she was too weak. But she couldn't leave him either. If she went back for help, he'd be dead before she returned. Then she saw it, a cluster of rocks about 20 feet away, forming a natural shelter against the wind. Not perfect, but better than open ground. "I'm going to drag you to those rocks," she said. "It's going to hurt." "Marianne, don't. You're still recovering. You'll—" "Shut up and help me." She got behind him, hooked her arms under his, and pulled. Cole made a sound between a gasp and a scream. Marianne pulled again, her muscles screaming, her lungs burning from the cold air. 20 feet felt like 20 miles. But she kept pulling, kept moving, kept refusing to let him die. They made it to the rocks, and she got him positioned against the largest one, somewhat protected from the wind. Then she used the rope to tie them together, not romantic, not gentle, just practical. If one of them died, the other would know. "This is insane," Cole gasped. "You're going to freeze to death trying to save me." "Then we'll freeze together. Better than letting you die alone." "I'm not worth this, Marianne. I'm not—" "Stop." She pressed her hand over his mouth. "Stop saying you're not worth saving. You paid $100 for me when no one else would. You took in a stranger and gave her a home. You love your daughter more than your own guilt. You are worth saving, Cole Garrison, and I'm not letting you die out here, so shut up and let me help you." She stripped off Cole's extra shirt, the one she'd borrowed, and packed it around his broken leg, trying to stabilize it. Then she wrapped herself around him, sharing what little warmth she had, and they sat together in the shelter of the rocks while the storm raged. "Tell me about Emma when she was little," Marianne said, needing to keep him talking, keep him conscious. "Before everything happened." Cole's breathing was shallow-pained. "She was fearless. Used to follow me everywhere, wanted to do everything I did, tried to ride a cow once when she was 5. Catherine about had a heart attack. Did she make it? 3 seconds before she fell off. Laughed the whole time. Catherine was furious with me for not stopping her, but I couldn't. She was so happy." What changed? The fire. After that, she became afraid of everything. Afraid of losing me like she lost her mama. Started having nightmares about being alone. I didn't know how to help her. Didn't know how to fix it. You can't fix grief, Cole. You can only live through it. Is that what you're doing? Living through it? Every day. Some days better than others. But I keep waking up. Keep trying. That's all any of us can do. Cole's hand found hers, squeezed weakly. "I'm glad you woke up. That day after the fever. I thought I'd killed you by bringing you here. You saved me by bringing me here. Don't you see that I was dying on that platform? Maybe not physically right then, but inside where it counts. You gave me a reason to keep fighting. What reason? You, Emma, this ranch, a place where I matter, where I can be useful, where I'm not just surviving, I'm living. Cole's eyes were starting to drift closed, and Marianne shook him. Stay awake. Talk to me. Tell me about Catherine. She was everything good, he said, forcing his eyes open. Kind, patient, strong. Better than I deserved. When she died, I thought that was my punishment. For not being enough. For failing her. You didn't fail her. You saved your daughter. That's what she would have wanted. How do you know? Because if I loved someone enough to marry them enough to have a child with them, I'd want them to save that child above everything else. Even above me. Especially above me. That's what love is, Cole. It's choosing what matters most, even when it breaks you. He looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. When did you get so wise? When I lost everything and learned what actually mattered. They fell silent, huddled together against the storm. Marianne's feet had gone numb, her hands ached from cold, and she couldn't feel her face anymore. But she kept her arms around Cole, kept her body pressed against his, kept breathing warmth onto his neck and chest. If we die out here, Cole said quietly, I want you to know something. We're not dying. But if we do, I want you to know that these past weeks, having you in the house, seeing you with Emma, watching you become part of our lives, it's been the closest I've felt to happy since the fire. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you that sooner. Sorry I kept pushing you away. You were protecting yourself. I understand that. I was being a coward. There's a difference. Then stop being a coward now. Fight. For Emma, for the ranch. For yourself. Fight Cole. And for you. Marianne's breath caught. What? Should I fight for you too? She pulled back enough to see his face, to see the truth in his eyes, the fear and hope, and something that looked terrifyingly like love. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. I promise. Now promise me you'll fight. Promise me you won't give up. I promise, Cole whispered, and his eyes drifted closed again. Marianne shook him, but he didn't wake. His breathing was shallow, his skin too cold, and panic rose in her throat like bile. She'd found him. She'd gotten them to shelter. But it might not be enough. No, she said fiercely, shaking him harder. No, Cole, you don't get to do this. You don't get to make me promise to stay and then leave me. Wake up! Wake up right now! Nothing. His chest still rose and fell, but barely. Marianne looked around desperately, trying to think. The storm showed no signs of letting up. They could be here for hours, maybe days. Cole needed real shelter, real warmth, medical attention for his leg. But she couldn't move him, and she couldn't leave him. Then she remembered the rope. The rope tied around her waist, leading back toward the barn. If she followed it, she could find her way back to Emma. And if Emma was still in the barn, maybe together they could. No. Emma had promised to stay safe. Marianne couldn't risk the girl's life by bringing her out into this storm. But what was the alternative? Sit here and watch Cole die. Marianne made a decision. She untied the rope from around Cole and retied it around his wrist, then started unwinding it as she moved away from the rocks. If she could follow it back to the barn, she could get help. And if she got lost, at least the rope would lead Emma back to her father's body. The thought made her want to vomit, but she pushed it down and started walking. The journey back was harder than the journey out. Marianne's body was exhausted, her mind foggy from cold, her hands so numb she could barely feel the rope she was supposed to be following. But she kept moving, kept counting steps, kept refusing to give up. When she finally stumbled into the barn, Emma was there, instantly grabbing her, holding her up. Miss Fletcher, you found him. Where is he? Why didn't he come back with you? His leg's broken. Marianne gasped. He's by the rocks in the far pasture. I tied a rope to him, but I can't move him alone. I need help. I'll come with you. We'll drag him together. No, too dangerous. You just went out there. Why can I not? Because you're his daughter, and he needs you alive more than he needs anything else in this world. Marianne gripped Emma's shoulders. Listen to me. I'm going back out there. I'm going to try to get him to shelter. If I'm not back by dark, you ride to the Murphy Ranch 5 miles east. Get Mr. Murphy and his sons. Tell them what happened. They'll help. The storm. We'll kill your father if we don't do something. This is the only way, Emma. You have to trust me. Emma's face crumpled, but she nodded. Don't let him die. Please don't let him die. I won't. I promise. Marianne grabbed a blanket from the tack room, wound the rope back around her waist, and headed into the storm again. The journey back to Cole felt like walking through a nightmare. The wind had picked up the snow falling so thick, Marianne could barely see her own hands. But the rope held, lighting her forward, and she followed it with the blind faith of someone who had nothing left to lose. She found Cole where she'd left him unconscious, and worryingly still. She wrapped the blanket around him, then made a decision that went against every instinct she had. She started a fire. It was insane in a blizzard with wind that could scatter sparks with snow that could put it out as fast as she lit it. But Cole was dying from cold, and she had no other options. So she gathered dry grass from under the snow, found twigs sheltered by the rocks, and used the matches she'd thought to grab from the barn. It took 6 tries before the fire caught. 6 tries with frozen hands and wind that fought her at every turn. But on the 7th try, blessed fire, blessed warmth, blessed hope. She fed it carefully, keeping it small and contained, building a windbreak with rocks and snow. Then she positioned Cole as close as she dared and sat beside him, one hand on his chest to feel his breathing, one hand feeding twigs to the flames. You're going to live? She told him, told herself, told the storm that seemed determined to prove her wrong. You hear me, Cole Garrison? You're going to live because Emma needs you, and this ranch needs you, and I need you, and you don't get to quit on us. You don't get to give up. His eyes fluttered open just for a moment. Marianne. I'm here. I'm right here. Fire. You made fire. I did. Crazy woman. His lips quirked in something that might have been a smile. Completely insane. Takes one to know one. His hand found hers, held on weakly. Thank you for not leaving me. I told you, we freeze together or we survive together. Those are the only options. Cole's eyes closed again, but his breathing seemed easier, his color less gray. The fire was working. Not much, not enough to save him completely, but enough to buy them time. Marianne fed the fire and held Cole's hand and waited for the storm to pass. She thought about Emma alone in the barn, about the promise she'd made to bring Cole home, about all the ways this could still go wrong. But she also thought about the alternative, leaving Cole to die, going back to the house alone, having to tell Emma she'd failed. No, that wasn't an option. She'd survived too much to give up now. Hours passed. The storm showed no signs of stopping, but it didn't get worse either. Marianne's fire held protected by the rocks and her stubborn refusal to let it die. And slowly, Cole's breathing steadied. His color improved. He wasn't dying anymore, he was just hurt. Marianne, he said sometime after what must have been noon, his voice stronger. You need to go back, before you get too weak. Not leaving you. You're going to freeze to death. So are you if I go. At least this way we have a chance. Why are you doing this? Marianne looked at him, at this man who'd saved her from an auction platform, who'd given her work and shelter and purpose, who'd let her matter. Because someone once spent $100 they couldn't afford to prove I was worth saving. And I'm returning the favor. That's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. You saw worth in me when no one else did. I see worth in you. That's how this works, Cole. We save each other. His hand tightened on hers. If we survive this. When we survive this. When we survive this, I need to tell you something. Tell me now. It'll sound crazy. Everything about this situation is crazy. Try me. Cole took a breath, winced from pain, then spoke anyway. I think I'm falling in love with you. And I know that's insane because we barely know each other, and you're here working for me, and there's no reason you'd feel the same way. But I needed to say it. Needed you to know before nothing. Marianne interrupted. Because we're surviving this. Remember? And when we get back to the house, when your leg is set and we're both warm and safe, you can tell me that again. And I'll tell you that I'm falling in love with you too. And we'll figure out what that means together. But right now, right this moment, all that matters is staying alive. Agreed. Cole stared at her, hope and disbelief warring on his face. You're falling in love with me. Apparently I have terrible judgment. Now stop talking and save your strength. Yes, ma'am. They fell silent again, but Cole's hand stayed in hers, and Marianne felt something warm spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the fire. The storm finally broke just before dark. The wind died down, the snow thinned to flurries, and suddenly, Marianne could see more than 10 feet in front of her. She stood up on shaking legs and looked toward the barn. A figure was running toward them through the snow. Emma, rope around her waist, face determined. Behind her came 3 men on horses, Mr. Murphy and his sons, just like Marianne had told Emma to fetch. Papa! Emma screamed, running the last few yards and throwing herself at Cole. Papa, you're alive. I'm alive, little bird, thanks to Miss Fletcher. Mr. Murphy dismounted, took one look at the situation, the makeshift fire, Cole's broken leg, Marianne's exhausted face, and whistled low. Never seen anything like this. You kept him alive out here in that storm. I made a promise, Marianne said simply. I don't break promises. The Murphy boys fashioned a stretcher from fence posts and rope, loaded Cole onto it with surprising gentleness, and they all made the slow journey back to the house. Emma never let go of her father's hand. Marianne walked beside the stretcher, and when Cole's eyes met hers, she saw everything he'd said earlier reflected back: hope, fear, love, gratitude. They got Cole inside, got him warm, got his leg set, with Mr. Murphy's surprisingly skilled hands. The break was clean and would heal, though Cole would limp for the rest of his life. But he'd live. They'd both live. After the Murphys left, refusing payment, saying neighbors helped neighbors, Emma finally spoke. You could have died. Marianne looked at this fierce, frightened girl who'd become like a daughter to her in just a few short weeks. So could he. But you didn't have to go after him. You could have stayed safe. Emma, do you remember what I told you the first day I met you, that I wouldn't leave without saying goodbye? Yes. Well, I'm not leaving, not ever. Your father's not getting rid of me that easily. Neither are you. We're family now. And family doesn't abandon each other. Not ever. Emma burst into tears and threw herself into Marianne's arms, and Marianne held her and cried too, all the fear and exhaustion and relief finally breaking through. From his bed in the corner, Cole watched them and smiled despite the pain. His family. Broken and strange and put together from pieces that shouldn't fit, but his family nonetheless. And for the first time since Catherine died, Cole Garrison let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he deserved a second chance at happiness. Cole spent 3 days in bed before he tried to get up, and when he did, Marianne was there to stop him. Absolutely not. I need to check the cattle. Mr. Murphy already checked them. They're fine. The fence in the north pasture needs mending. It'll wait. Marianne, I can't just lie here while the ranch falls apart. The ranch isn't falling apart. I'm managing it. Cole stared at her. You're what? Managing it. With Emma's help. We fed the animals this morning, collected eggs, checked the hay stores. Everything's handled. Now lie back down before you fall down. But Cole was already trying to stand, his face going white with pain as his broken leg took weight. Marianne caught him before he collapsed, half carrying him back to the bed. You stubborn fool, she said, but her voice was shaking. You could have undone everything the doctor worked to set. I can't let you do my work. Why not? I'm perfectly capable. Because it's not your responsibility. You're here to help with Emma, not run a cattle ranch. Maybe I'm here to do whatever needs doing. Did you consider that? They glared at each other, both breathing hard, and Emma's voice cut through the tension from the doorway. You sound like you're married already. Both adults turned to stare at her. Emma shrugged, completely unbothered. What you do? That's how Mama and Papa used to argue, about who was doing too much and who needed to rest and who was being stubborn. It was kind of nice, actually. Meant they cared. She walked past them to the stove, started making coffee like nothing unusual had happened, and left Marianne and Cole staring at each other with new awareness. We're not married, Cole said finally, but the words came out uncertain. No. Marianne agreed. We're not. But we could be. The words hung in the air between them, terrifying and inevitable. Marianne's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Is that a proposal? I don't know. Maybe. Is it? That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. It's the only one you're getting. Then I suppose I should say yes before you take it back. Cole's eyes went wide. You're saying yes. I just dragged you out of a blizzard and kept you alive with a fire built in a snowstorm. If that's not commitment, I don't know what is. That's insane reasoning. You're the one who proposed while lying in bed with a broken leg. You don't get to talk about insane reasoning. Emma turned from the stove, coffee forgotten. Wait, are you really getting married? Marianne and Cole looked at each other, and something passed between them, an understanding, a promise, a leap of faith. Yes, Marianne said. If your father's serious. I'm serious, Cole said. I'm terrified, and probably making a mistake, and definitely going about this all wrong, but I'm serious. Then, yes, I'll marry you. Emma let out a whoop that probably scared the chickens in the barn and launched herself at both of them, nearly knocking Cole over in his weakened state. Marianne caught them both laughing and crying at the same time, and thought that this was the strangest, most imperfect proposal in the history of proposals. And it was perfect. But reality set in quickly. They had no money for a wedding, no way to get to town with Cole injured, and the roads still heavy with snow. And more pressingly, they had no legal standing to marry. Marianne's contract had been with Silas Morton, not Cole. The debt might be paid, but the paperwork was complicated. We'll figure it out, Cole said that evening after Emma had gone to bed. When I can travel, we'll go to town, speak to the territorial judge, get everything sorted proper. And in the meantime, we keep doing what we're doing. Running the ranch, taking care of Emma, being a family, even if the law doesn't recognize it yet. People will talk. Let them. They already talked when I bought you off that platform. This won't be any different. But it was different. And 3 days later, they learned exactly how different when a wagon pulled up to the ranch and Margaret Henderson climbed down. She was the woman from the auction, the one who'd called Marianne livestock, who'd sneered at Cole's purchase. And now she stood in their kitchen with her thin mouth pursed and her eyes cold. Mr. Garrison, I've come on behalf of the town council. Cole, using a crutch Marianne had fashioned from an old broom handle, positioned himself between Margaret and Marianne. What does the council want? There's been talk about this woman living here, about impropriety. Her name is Marianne Fletcher, and there's nothing improper about her helping with my household. She's sleeping under your roof, unmarried and unchaperoned. That's the very definition of impropriety, Mr. Garrison. I have a broken leg and a young daughter. Miss Fletcher is helping me manage until I recover. That's all. Is it? Margaret's eyes flicked to Marianne. Or has she taken advantage of your vulnerability, wormed her way into your home and convinced you to keep her? Get out. Marianne said, her voice low and dangerous. Excuse me. You heard me. Get out of this house before I throw you out. Margaret's face went red. You have no authority here. You're nothing but a... I'm the woman who saved Cole's life in the blizzard. Marianne interrupted. I'm the woman who's been running this ranch while he heals. I'm the woman who's teaching Emma and keeping this household from falling apart. And in a few weeks, I'll be his wife. So you can take your talk and your counsel and your judgments and get off this property before I make you leave. You can't speak to me that way. I just did. Now go. Margaret looked to Cole, expecting him to intervene to put Marianne in her place. Instead, he stepped forward, awkward on his crutch, but determined. You heard her. Leave. The council won't stand for this. They'll do nothing, Cole said flatly. Because this is my land, my house, and my family. The council has no authority here. Now get out before I set my bride-to-be on you, and trust me, Mrs. Henderson, you don't want that. Margaret's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Then she turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Emma, who'd been hiding on the stairs, came down slowly. Is she going to cause trouble? Probably, Cole admitted. But it doesn't matter. Let her try. But it did matter, because a week later the sheriff showed up. His name was Tom Bartlett, and he'd known Cole since they were boys. He stood in the doorway with his hat in his hands and regret on his face. Cole, I'm sorry, but the council's filed a complaint. Says Miss Fletcher is living here in sin, corrupting your daughter, taking advantage of your injury. That's horseshit, and you know it, Tom. I know it, but the law's the law. She's either your wife, legal and proper, or she can't stay here without a chaperone. Then we'll get married, today, right now. You can perform the ceremony. I can't, not without proper paperwork. Her contract was with Silas Morton. There's legal complications about transferring that debt and obligation. Judge Harmon's the only one who can sort it out, and he won't be back through Salvation Creek for another 2 months. Cole's face went hard. So what are you saying? I'm saying she has to leave, until the legalities are settled. I'm sorry, Cole. I truly am. But if I don't enforce this, the council will have my badge. This is because of Margaret Henderson. This is because of a lot of people who don't like seeing the rules bent. You embarrassed them when you paid for Miss Fletcher. You embarrassed them again when you didn't send her away after the fever. Now they want their pound of flesh. They can't have it. Cole? No. Cole's voice was absolute. Marianne stays. She's part of this family. She saved my life. She's teaching my daughter. She's going to be my wife. And if the council or the law or God himself has a problem with that, they can come talk to me themselves. Tom looked at Marianne, and she saw sympathy in his eyes. Miss Fletcher, do you have anywhere else you could go? Just temporarily until this gets sorted. No, Marianne said. I have nothing and nowhere, just here. Then I don't know what to tell you, except that if you're still here tomorrow, I'll have to arrest you for... He stopped, couldn't finish the sentence. For what? Emma demanded, coming to stand beside Marianne. For helping us, for saving Papa, for being good to me. You're going to arrest her for that. Emma, it's not. It's not fair. She hasn't done anything wrong. She's the best person I know, and you're going to take her away because some mean old women don't like her. Emma's voice broke. She promised she wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. She promised. Marianne knelt down, pulled Emma close. And I'm keeping that promise. I'm not leaving. Not unless your father tells me to go. She looked at Cole, and he looked back at her, and they both knew what was coming. They'd have to fight. Fight the council, fight the law, fight the whole damn town if necessary. But they'd do it together. Tom, Cole said quietly, give us 24 hours. To do what? To figure this out, one day. That's all I'm asking. Tom hesitated, then nodded. 24 hours. But Cole, if she's still here after that, I won't have a choice. They'll force my hand. After he left, the three of them sat at the table in silence. Emma was crying quietly. Cole's face was set in hard lines, and Marianne felt her heart breaking because she'd finally found a home, and now it was being torn away. We could run, Emma said suddenly. All of us. Go somewhere the council can't find us. With my leg like this, We wouldn't make it 10 miles, Cole said. And I won't lose this ranch. My father built it. My mother died on it. Catherine's buried here. I won't let them take it. Then what do we do? Marianne asked. Cole looked at her and she saw determination in his eyes. We get married, tonight. No judge, no paperwork, no legal authority. Just us and God and the promises we make to each other. And then tomorrow when Tom comes back, you'll be my wife in every way that matters. Let them try to separate us then. That won't be legal. I don't care about legal. I care about right. And this is right, Marianne. You belong here. With us. With me. So we do it our way. And we deal with the consequences later. What if they arrest you too, for harboring me, or whatever they want to call it? Then they arrest me. I won't send you away. I can't. Marianne's throat was tight. Why? Why risk everything for me? Because you risked everything for me. Because you kept me alive in that blizzard when you could have saved yourself. Because you've given Emma back her smile and me back my hope. Because I love you, Marianne Fletcher, and I won't let them take you from us. Not now, not ever. Emma wiped her eyes. So we're really doing this, having a wedding tonight. We're really doing this, Cole confirmed. If Marianne agrees. Marianne looked at this man and this girl who'd become her family in the span of weeks, who'd given her purpose and home and love when she'd had nothing. And she made her choice. I agree. Let's get married. They did it at sunset, the three of them standing in the main room with no witnesses, no official, no legal standing whatsoever. Just Cole leaning on his crutch, Emma holding a Bible that had belonged to Catherine and Marianne in her mended dress, with tears on her cheeks. Cole spoke first, his voice rough but sure. Marianne Fletcher, I'm not good with pretty words. Never have been. But I can promise you this. I'll work every day to be worthy of the chance you're taking on me. I'll protect you with everything I have. I'll stand beside you against whatever comes. And I'll love you until the day I die. That's my vow. Marianne's voice shook but held. Cole Garrison, you saved me when I had nothing. You gave me work and shelter and purpose. You made me believe I was worth saving. And now I promise you this. I'll stand with you through every storm. I'll help raise your daughter as my own. I'll fight for this family with everything I am. And I'll love you with all the broken pieces of my heart. That's my vow. Emma looked between them, then cleared her throat importantly. Do you both promise to love each other forever, and not fight too much, and let me have a say in important family decisions? We promise, they said together, and Emma grinned through her tears. Then I say you're married, because if the grown-ups won't do it right, someone has to. And I say you belong together. So there. Cole pulled Marianne close, kissed her gently, and she felt something in her chest break open, not breaking apart, but breaking free. All the walls she'd built to protect herself, all the fear that she'd never be loved again, all the doubt that she deserved happiness. It all cracked and fell away, and what was left was just truth. She was loved. She was home. She was finally free. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, still smiling, Cole and Marianne sat by the fire and faced the reality of what they'd done. Tomorrow they'll come for me, Marianne said quietly. Then we'll face them together. Cole, I can't let you lose everything because of me. You are everything. The ranch, the land, none of it matters if you're not here. Emma needs you. She needs this place. You can't risk it for my wife. Yes, I can, and I will. We're not legally married. We're married in every way that counts, and I'll fight anyone who says different. Marianne leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart, the warmth of his body beside hers. I'm scared. Me too, but we'll figure it out. We always do. Morning came too fast. They heard the wagon wheels before dawn, and Cole was already up and dressed when the pounding came on the door. It wasn't just Tom Bartlett this time. It was the whole council, 5 men and 3 women, including Margaret Henderson, with triumph on her face. "Mr. Garrison," the head councilman said, a banker named Silas Worth. "We're here for Miss Fletcher." "She's not here," Cole said calmly. "Don't lie to us. We know Mrs. Garrison is inside. Miss Fletcher is gone." The council exchanged glances. Margaret stepped forward. "You can't have married her. There's been no ceremony, no license, no—" "We married last night, before God and my daughter. That's all the authority we need." "That's not legal." "I don't care about legal," Cole said, and his voice was hard as iron. "I care about my wife, and she's not leaving this house. Not for you, not for the council, not for anyone." "Then we'll have you both arrested," Silas said. "For fraud, for breaking contract law, for what?" A new voice interrupted. "For loving each other." They all turned. A man was climbing down from a horse, older, gray-haired, with a judge's bearing, and the dust of hard travel on his clothes. "Judge Harmon." Tom Bartlett looked stunned. "We weren't expecting you for 2 months. Ran into Mr. Murphy on the road. He told me about the situation here. Thought I'd best come sort it out before you all did something stupid." The judge walked up the steps to the porch, taking in the standoff. "Now someone tell me what's happening here before I start holding people in contempt." Everyone started talking at once, the council shouting about impropriety, Cole defending Marianne, Tom trying to explain the law. The judge held up a hand for silence. "Mrs. Henderson, you filed the initial complaint. I did, Your Honor. This woman is living in sin with—" "Did you witness any sinful behavior?" "Well, no, but everyone knows." "Everyone knows nothing. You've accused without evidence. That's slander, madam, and I don't take kindly to it." He turned to Cole. "Mr. Garrison, you claim Miss Fletcher is now your wife." "I do. We married last night." "Without legal authority." "Without legal authority," Cole admitted. "But with every intention of making it right in the eyes of the law once you arrived. We just didn't expect to wait 2 months while the council harassed my family." Judge Harmon pulled out papers from his coat. "As it happens, I've reviewed Miss Fletcher's situation. The debt to Silas Morton's estate was paid in full by you, Mr. Garrison. That fulfills the contract. Miss Fletcher has been a free woman since that day. The marriage contract died with Morton. She owed nothing to anyone." The council went very quiet. Margaret Henderson's face went white. "So she could have married anyone?" Tom asked. "Anytime." "Anytime," the judge confirmed. The council had no legal standing to interfere. He looked at Margaret with cold eyes. "You've wasted everyone's time with your gossip and bile, Mrs. Henderson, and you've caused unnecessary suffering to people who've done nothing wrong." "But they weren't legally married last night," Margaret protested weakly. "No, but they are now." The judge pulled out a pen. "Mr. Garrison, Miss Fletcher, come here, please." Cole helped Marianne down the steps, and they stood before the judge while the sun rose over the Wyoming mountains. "Do you both consent to marry?" "We do," they said together. "Then, by the authority vested in me by the Wyoming Territory, I pronounce you husband and wife." Again. Properly this time. He signed the papers, handed them to Cole. "There. Now it's legal. Anyone have a problem with that?" No one spoke. Margaret Henderson looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. The rest of the council seemed embarrassed. "Good," Judge Harmon said. "Now all of you get off this property and let these people live their lives in peace. And Mrs. Henderson, if I hear you've been spreading more gossip, I'll charge you with harassment. Are we clear?" "Perfectly clear, Your Honor," Margaret said through gritted teeth. The council left in their wagons, defeated and silent. Tom Bartlett tipped his hat to Cole and Marianne. "Congratulations, Cole. Mrs. Garrison, I'm sorry for the trouble." "Not your fault, Tom. You were doing your job." After they'd all gone, Judge Harmon accepted coffee and sat at their table, while Emma peppered him with questions about law and justice and whether she could become a judge someday. "You've got a sharp one here," he told Cole. "She'll do well if you give her the education." "That's the plan." The judge finished his coffee and stood to leave. "Oh, one more thing. The council's been trying to get you to sell this ranch for years, Worth wants the land for railroad expansion. They thought if they drove Miss Fletcher away, you'd have no choice but to give up and sell. That's what this was really about. Cole's jaw tightened. They won't get my land. I didn't think they would, but watch yourself. Men like Worth don't give up easy. He nodded to Marianne. You've got yourself a good woman, Cole, one who'll fight beside you. That's worth more than all the land in Wyoming. After he left, the three of them stood on the porch watching the sun climb higher. We're really married now, Marianne said, still holding the papers. Legal and everything. We were married last night, Cole said. The papers just make it official. Does this mean I can call you Ma? Emma asked Marianne, her voice tentative and hopeful. Marianne knelt down, pulled Emma into a hug. You can call me whatever feels right to you. Ma feels right, Emma whispered. If that's okay. That's more than okay, Marianne said, her voice breaking. That's perfect. They went inside this family that had been forged from auction platforms and blizzards and stubborn refusal to give up. They had battles ahead. Worth wouldn't stop trying for the land, the town would talk, life would throw more hardship their way. But they had each other now, legal and proper and true. And that, Marianne thought as she watched Cole and Emma laughing over breakfast, was all that mattered. They'd started with nothing and built everything. And no council or judge or gossip could take that away. Spring came to Wyoming with mud and hope in equal measure. Cole's leg healed crooked but strong, leaving him with a limp he'd carry the rest of his life. He called it his reminder that sometimes surviving meant accepting you'd never be the same again. Marianne watched him work the ranch with new efficiency, adapting his movements to accommodate the injury, refusing to slow down or give up. She loved him more for it, for that stubborn determination that matched her own. You're staring again, Cole said one morning, catching her watching from the kitchen window. I'm appreciating. There's a difference. A big one. He came inside, kissed her forehead in that casual way married people had, and Marianne marveled that this was her life now. Real and legal and hers. But Worth hadn't given up. The first attempt came in May, a letter offering to buy the ranch for triple its value. He must really want this land. Cole said, crumpling the letter. What are you going to tell him? What do you think I'm going to tell him? Marianne smiled. That he can go to hell. You're learning. The second attempt was more direct. Worth showed up with two men Marianne didn't recognize, hard-faced men with guns on their hips and calculation in their eyes. Mr. Garrison, I'm prepared to be very generous. I'm prepared to show you the property line. You're standing on it. The railroad is coming through this territory. Your land is in the path. You can sell now and profit, or the railroad will take it through eminent domain and you'll get nothing. Let them try. I've got papers saying this land is mine, signed by the territorial governor himself. My father homesteaded it legal and proper. No railroad's taking it without a fight. Worth's smile was cold. You sure you want to fight the railroad, Mr. Garrison? They have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, politicians, money. What do you have? I have everything that matters, Cole said. Now get off my land before I help you off it. After they left, Marianne found Cole in the barn, his hands shaking with rage or fear, or both. He's not going to stop, Cole said. Then we don't stop either. Marianne, you don't understand. The railroad, they don't play fair. They'll find ways to hurt us, make life impossible. Let them try. We've survived worse. Have we? She took his hands, stilled them with her own. I survived being sold on an auction platform. You survived a fire that should have killed you. Together we survived a blizzard that wanted us both dead. I think we can handle a banker with delusions of power. Cole pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. When did you get so fearless? I'm not fearless. I'm terrified. But I won't let fear make my decisions anymore. And neither will you. The attack started small. Fences cut in the night, cattle scattered. A fire in the hay barn that they caught early enough to contain. Messages left on their door warnings to sell before things got worse. They fixed the fences, gathered the cattle, rebuilt what burned. And they didn't break. Emma grew fiercer with each attack, standing guard with a rifle she barely knew how to use, her young face hard with determination. "They're not taking our home," she said one night after finding another fence cut. "No," Marianne agreed. "They're not." But the pressure was wearing on all of them. Cole slept less, worked more, pushed himself until Marianne had to physically drag him inside. Emma started having nightmares again, waking up screaming that the house was on fire, that her mother was calling her name. And Marianne felt the old fear creeping back that maybe she'd brought this trouble on them. Maybe if she'd never gotten off that train in Salvation Creek, Cole and Emma would be safe. She said as much to Cole one night, lying in their bed with darkness pressing in. "Don't," he said fiercely. "Don't you dare blame yourself for Worth being a bastard. If I hadn't been here, he wouldn't have a reason to target you. He'd have found another reason. Men like him always do. This isn't about you, Marianne. It's about power and greed and the fact that I won't bow to either one. I'm scared we're going to lose everything. Then we lose it fighting, together, like we do everything else." The breaking point came in July. Marianne was in town buying supplies when she overheard two women talking in the general store. "Terrible shame about the Garrison girl, so young to lose her mother, and now they say the ranch is failing. I heard Worth offered them a fortune to sell. They should have taken it. Pride's going to cost them everything. That Fletcher woman probably talked him out of it. Gold digger if I ever saw one." Marianne set down the flowers she'd been examining and turned to face them. "Say that again." The women jumped, faces flushing red. "We didn't mean—" "You meant every word, so say it to my face instead of behind my back." "Now see here, you can't." "I can and I will. You want to call me a gold digger, fine. But you look me in the eye when you do it." The store went quiet, everyone watching, waiting. "I have nothing to say to you," the first woman said, looking away. "That's what I thought. But let me tell you what I have to say to you, to everyone in this town who's been whispering and judging and waiting for us to fail." Marianne's voice carried through the store, strong and clear. "Cole Garrison is the best man I've ever known. He saved my life when I had nothing. He gave me a home when I was desperate. He married me when the whole town said I wasn't worth it. And now you're all standing around watching while Worth tries to destroy him, and you're doing nothing. You're gossiping and judging instead of helping, instead of being neighbors." "It's not our business," someone said. "It's everyone's business. Because if Worth can take Cole's land through intimidation and violence, what's to stop him from taking yours? You think your property is safe? You think you're protected? You're not. None of us are, unless we stand together. Worth has the railroad behind him. What can we do? We can refuse to be intimidated. We can refuse to sell when he comes asking. We can help each other instead of tearing each other down. We can be better than our fear." She picked up her supplies and walked out, her heart pounding, her hands shaking. She didn't know if her words had made any difference. Didn't know if anyone would help. But 3 days later, Mr. Murphy showed up with his sons and a wagon full of lumber. "Heard you lost your hay barn. Figured you could use help rebuilding." Then the Johnsons came with tools. The Petersons with food. The widow McAllister with fabric for new curtains she insisted Emma needed. One by one, families showed up. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough. Enough to make a difference. They worked for 3 days rebuilding not just the barn, but fences, the chicken coop that had been damaged, the small things that had been neglected during the siege. And when Worth showed up on the 3rd day with his hired men, he found 15 families working together, armed and united. "Garrison, we need to talk." "I'm busy." "This is your last chance to sell." "Then I guess I'm not selling." Worth's face darkened. "You're making a mistake." "Probably, but it's my mistake to make. The railroad will come through, with or without your permission. Then I'll see them in court. Judge Harmon's already said he'll hear the case. And I've got 15 witnesses here who'll testify to your intimidation tactics. Think the railroad wants that kind of publicity. Think they want the papers writing about how they hired thugs to terrorize families. Worth looked around at the assembled neighbors, at the rifles propped against fences, and the determination on their faces. His hired men shifted uncomfortably. "This isn't over," Worth said. "Yes," Cole replied calmly. "It is. You're done here, Worth. Go back to town and tell the railroad they'll have to find another route. This land isn't for sale." After they left, the neighbors cheered, but Cole just turned to Marianne, and she saw exhaustion in his eyes. "You did this," he said quietly. "Your speech in the store. Murphy told me about it. You did this. We did this, together. No, you stood up when I was ready to give up. You reminded people what matters. You saved us, Marianne, again." She kissed him there in front of God and all their neighbors and didn't care who saw. That's what family does. The weeks that followed were peaceful in a way Marianne had almost forgotten was possible. The threats stopped. Worth left town entirely, called back to Denver in disgrace when word of his tactics reached the railroad executives. The ranch settled into a rhythm, work and rest, struggle and joy, the normal life they'd fought so hard to protect. Emma started school in town, riding in with Murphy's daughter 3 days a week. She came home with stories and books, and a hunger for learning that reminded Marianne painfully of herself at that age. "I want to be a lawyer," Emma announced one evening, "like Judge Harmon, so I can help people who can't help themselves." "That's a fine goal," Cole said. "But I'm a girl. Mrs. Henderson says girls can't be lawyers." "Mrs. Henderson's wrong about a lot of things," Marianne said. "You can be whatever you're willing to work for." "Really? Really? Look at me. A year ago I was being sold on an auction platform. Now I'm married to the stubbornest man in Wyoming, I run a ranch, and I helped drive off a corrupt banker. If I can do that, you can absolutely become a lawyer." Emma grinned. "You are kind of amazing, Ma." "I learned from the best," Marianne said, looking at Cole. That night, lying in bed with Cole's arm around her, Marianne thought about the journey that had brought her here. The train from Philadelphia, the auction platform, the first terrifying days in this house. The fever, the blizzard, the fights and fears and small victories that had built this life piece by piece. "What are you thinking about?" Cole asked. "How far we've come." "We've got further to go." "I know, but Cole, I'm happy. Right now in this moment, I'm genuinely happy. And I didn't think I'd ever feel that way again." He pulled her closer. "Neither did I. Funny how life works." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I went to that auction planning to offer help to a desperate woman. Basic Christian charity. And instead, I found my wife Emma, found her mother, and we all found our way back to being a family. That's not charity. That's grace." "You sound like a preacher." "I sound like a man who knows how lucky he is." Fall came, and with it Marianne's first real harvest as part of the ranch. She worked alongside Cole, learning the rhythms of cattle management, the economics of selling beef, the 1,000 small decisions that kept a ranch running. She was good at it, had a head for numbers and organization that Cole lacked, and together they made the ranch more profitable than it had been in years. They paid off old debts, bought new equipment, started saving money for Emma's education. Small victories, but they added up. Winter's first snow came in November, and Marianne stood on the porch watching it fall with different eyes than she'd had the year before. Last winter had been about survival, keeping Cole alive in the blizzard, fighting fever, defending against Worth's attacks. This winter was about living, planning for spring, teaching Emma, building a future instead of just surviving the present. "Ma, come look," Emma called from inside. "I wrote an essay about property rights, and Papa says it's good enough to send to the Denver newspaper." Marianne went inside to their warm house, their family, their life that they'd built from nothing but stubbornness and hope and the refusal to give up. And she thought about the woman who'd stepped off that train a year ago, hollow-eyed and desperate, wearing rags and carrying everything she owned in a single bag. That woman had believed she was worthless, that her life was over, that the best she could hope for was survival. She'd been wrong. Because here in this house with this man and this girl, Mary Ann Fletcher Garrison had found something she'd thought was lost forever. She'd found home. Not the building or the land, though those mattered, but home in the sense of belonging, of mattering, of being loved for exactly who she was, broken pieces and stubborn pride and all. Cole had seen worth in her when no one else could. He'd paid $100 he couldn't afford to prove she deserved a chance. And in return, she'd given him everything she had, her strength, her courage, her heart. They'd saved each other, not in some grand dramatic gesture, but in 1,000 small moments of choosing to stay, choosing to fight, choosing to believe that broken things could be made whole if you refused to give up on them. That night after Emma had gone to bed and the house was quiet, Mary Ann stood at the window watching the snow fall on their land that was theirs, now that no one could take away. Cole came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and they stood together in the darkness. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly. Mary Ann thought about the question, really thought about it. About the year of struggle and fear, about the fights and the fever and the blizzard that had almost killed them both. About the gossip and the threats and all the ways this could have gone wrong. And then she thought about Emma's laugh when they baked bread together. About Cole's rare smiles that lit up his scarred face. About the ranch thriving under their combined care. About waking up every morning next to someone who loved her, not despite her brokenness, but with full knowledge of it. "Not a single one," she said. "Good," Cole said. "Because I plan on keeping you for the next 50 years at least." "Only 50. Well, I'm being realistic about our life expectancy. Wyoming winters are hard. We've survived worse." "Yes," he agreed, and she heard the smile in his voice. "We have." Years later, when Emma went off to law school in Denver and made them both prouder than words could express, when the ranch expanded and thrived beyond anything Cole had dreamed, when neighbors pointed to the Garrison place as proof that hard work and love could overcome anything, Mary Ann would remember that first night on the auction platform. She'd remember the faces of the men who looked at her like she was nothing. The sound of the auctioneer's bored voice as he tried to sell her for $5, the cold that had seeped into her bones and made her believe she'd die alone and forgotten. And she'd remember Cole stepping forward with money and mercy in equal measure, choosing her when she'd given up on being chosen, seeing worth where everyone else saw worthlessness. He'd saved her life that day. But more than that, he'd given her back her life, the chance to be more than just a survivor, the opportunity to thrive and love and build something meaningful from the ashes of everything she'd lost. And in return, she'd given him the same gift, proof that love after loss was possible, that family could be built by choice as much as blood, that broken hearts could heal if you gave them reason and time and someone brave enough to hold the pieces together while they mended. They grew old together on that ranch, weathering storms, both literal and metaphorical, fighting off developers and droughts and all the 1,000 challenges that came with building a life in Wyoming territory. They loved fiercely and fought honestly and built something that would outlast them both, not just land and cattle and buildings, but a legacy of choosing hope over despair, of seeing worth in unexpected places, of refusing to give up on people just because the world had given up on them. And when Mary Ann died at 73, surrounded by Cole and Emma and the grandchildren who'd filled their house with noise and joy, her last thought was simple and true. She'd mattered. To someone. To many someones. And that was everything she'd ever wanted. Cole followed her 2 years later, his stubborn heart finally giving out after a life lived fully and completely. They buried him next to Mary Ann under the cottonwood tree they'd planted their first spring together, and Emma stood at the grave with her own children and told them the story of how their grandparents had met. "Your grandmother arrived in rags," Emma said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "And your grandfather saw past them to the woman underneath. He saved her life that day, and she spent the rest of her life returning the favor." It was a simple story. A man and a woman, both broken, both desperate, both choosing hope when all evidence suggested despair was the wiser choice. It wasn't grand or dramatic. It was just real messy and hard and beautiful in the way that real things are. But it was their story, and in the end, that made it perfect, because everyone deserves to be saved. Everyone deserves to be seen for who they really are beneath the rags and scars and broken pieces. Everyone deserves a chance to prove they're worth the $100, the risk, the leap of faith. Cole had given that to Marianne. And together they'd built a life that proved him right. She'd been worth every cent, and then some. Not because of what she could do or provide, but because of who she was. A woman who refused to quit, who saw worth in others because someone had finally seen it in her, who turned salvation into legacy and made sure no one in her orbit ever felt as worthless as she'd felt on that auction platform. That was the real miracle. Not the romance or the survival or the happy ending, but the way broken people could heal each other if they were brave enough to try, the way love could bloom in the most unlikely places, the way choosing to see someone's worth could change not just one life, but generations. And long after the ranch passed to new hands and the buildings were rebuilt and the land was divided among descendants, the story remained whispered in Wyoming towns, told to children as proof that worth isn't measured in money or status or the approval of crowds. Worth is measured in the courage to keep standing when everything says fall. Worth is measured in the choice to see someone else's humanity when the world sees nothing. Worth is measured in the stubborn refusal to give up on people, on hope, on the possibility that tomorrow might be better than today if you're willing to fight for it. Marianne Fletcher stepped off a train wearing rags, and Cole Garrison paid $100 to give her a chance. And from that single moment of mercy came a lifetime of love, a legacy of hope, and proof that sometimes the best things in life arrive in the most unexpected packages. All you have to do is be brave enough to see what others miss, kind enough to offer help without conditions, and stubborn enough to refuse to let the world define what's possible. That's the lesson. That's the legacy. That's the truth that outlasted the people who lived it. Everyone is worth saving, and sometimes all it takes is one person willing to pay the price.